Chocolate is delicious. Many people globally would agree to this, and it comes in many different forms. It's also a tasty emotional boost for people, especially during tense times, as highlighted by the increase of chocolate sales since the initial COVID lockdowns. But even something as tasty as chocolate is not excluded from having issues. Taking a peek at the supply chain, there are many disparate issues. Despite the large amount of wealth generated from the chocolate loving world, the cacao farmers at the source of the supply chain are not even getting a fraction of the profit that the industry takes in, with companies knowingly sourcing from farms that use child and slave labor in order to keep prices competitive. Most workers on cocoa farms in the global south still live in extreme poverty and deplorable conditions, many of which are children, and are forced to use toxic industrial pesticides without proper safety equipment. To combat this, organizations such as Fairtrade and the World Cocoa Foundation are helping push government policies and industries to combat these illegal conditions. Mars has taken big steps to phase out some of the poor conditions along their supply chain. However, one of the biggest opportunities for improvement is in the amount of revenue that farmers can pull from their own crops. More income for the farmers means that they can improve their quality of life, have access to better education, not be forced into slave labor, and to use more sustainable methods for farming that don't harm them or their environments. One of the most pressing environmental issues in the supply chain is the amount of discarded cocoa husk waste. The outside of a cocoa pod is a robust, fibrous husk covering the fruit and beans. After the husk is removed from the beans, they're roasted and shipped around the world to produce our chocolate. Everything else is scrapped and left to rot on the farmer's property. Roughly 30 to 40% of cacao farmer income is spent on pesticides and fertilizer for their nutrient-deprived soil. Research suggests that these festering piles of cocoa pod husk waste, or CPH for short, are supporting the growth of cocoa diseases, such as black pod fungi and witch's broom, which are devastating to the farmers' cocoa crops, and therefore push these farmers deeper into poverty as they can't sell these infested beans. The rise of these plagues' destruction means even more harmful pesticides are used to protect the crops. With so many cacao pods wasting, could it not be used for something? Well, it very well can. There's a whole range of possibilities based on several research papers. We'll focus on two that demonstrate the most potential for scaling to farm use in order to present a solution that addresses these two issues: CPH waste and the impacts of pesticide damage on both the workers and the environment. Additionally, it could be scaled to be sold internationally. The first is using the husks to create a biofertilizer. There's a small number of farmers already using these methods to create fertilizer from the husk, though it hasn't been scaled up to be utilized more widely. We believe that not only could this be a source of income for farmers during a moment where global fertilizer supply chain issues have arisen, mostly due to the Ukraine-Russian war, but also as a means to combat regional crop diseases and to protect the workers from the damaging effects of toxic industrial chemicals and the pesticides that are being used currently. In the study, a microorganism is inoculated into the pod husk waste and grows as the husk decomposes. Once the husk compost is implemented in the fields, the microorganism has been shown to enhance the effects of counteracting prevalent crop diseases such as black pod. The result is a fertilizer that can not only enrich the soil, but also combat the spread of plant diseases without the use of harmful pesticides. We tested this study by adding yeast to a sample of fresh cocoa pod husk. Yeast has been discovered to have properties that counter the witch's broom disease that's been affecting many crops in Latin America. Though there are specific microorganisms that can be used for each specific region and their local plant diseases. This process also has the potential to be used regionally. Although it's not ideal to transfer the plants across continents, these biofertilizers can serve regional and neighboring countries. One example would be if the Ecuadorian farmers sold this fertilizer to Brazil, who serves as the world's biggest importer of fertilizer and has been hit hard by the supply chain issues caused by the Ukrainian Russian war. This also means that the bioorganisms can be specific per region, ensuring control over invasive organisms being introduced into different environments.
We propose that Mars could lead this educational and resource campaign with its cocoa partners to address the issue of CPH waste and toxic pesticides. With the proper knowledge provided by Mars's partners, farmers can transform their husk waste into useful products that are now being demanded globally. We also encourage Mars to allow the farmers to receive 100% of the profits from the fertilizer they sell, which will prevent the chocolate industry from exploiting them further.